just like your other reviews, you're going to fast forward this, kind of check your answers as you go, and then if you have any questions or miss one, then you'll go ahead and go to the beginning of a question and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through your review questions. This first one talks about if I have two vectors with the generic labels here, what is it when I have this as my outcome? Well, your key right there is this. It's going to be a dot product because that's when you take all of your i's essentially and you multiply them together, and then you're going to add that to your j values, and then you're going to add those to your k values if you have k values. So this would be a dot product on that one. The angle theta is between 0 and pi between two non-zero vectors u and v, can be found using which of the following formulas. So this is just making sure you know how to use the formula. We know it's cosine, so it can't be either of these. And we know we have to have the dot product in there, so it's not this one either. So we've got cosine theta equals u dot v over the magnitude of u, magnitude of v. Now, just as a reminder, that theta would be the inverse cosine of all that junk, right? I guess u dot v and then u v. And remember that u is going to be the square root of whatever, your x value is plus your y value squared. And if you do have a k value, go ahead and throw that in there as well. And you'll get a value on that. And then you do the same thing for your v, right? And remember, when you square a negative number, the negative goes away. Please do not add it in there. And you'll get those two values. And those are the two values that you're going to multiply together to put in the denominator. And then that u dot v is what we just talked about up here. You're going to take this, and that's what your u dot v is going to be. Okay? All right, number 3, given v equals negative I plus j and w equals I minus j, find the dot product. Find the angle between them and state whether the vectors are parallel, orthogonal, or neither. Now remember, these are not going to be tested, but we'll talk about it anyway. All right, so v is negative 1i plus 1j, and w is 1i minus 1j. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply these together. I end up with negative 1, and I'm going to add that to negative 1. So negative 1 plus negative 1 gives me negative 2. So that's going to be my dot value. That's A. Find the angle between V and W. We need to find our value for V, right, which is going to be equal to the square root of 1 squared plus 1 squared. Remember that this first one is a negative 1, right, but it's in parentheses. So when you add those together, you get the square root of 2. My W is going to be very similar. I have 1 squared plus negative 1 squared. So it's going to give me the square root of 2. So now I have the cosine of the angle equals V dot W over V times W. So that's going to be negative 2 over root 2 times root 2, which is the same as root 4. Well, we all know that the square root of 4 is going to be 2. So negative 2 over 2, which is going to give us negative 1. So the cosine of theta equals negative 1. Now that should be an easy one for you guys to see. If you need to do it in the calculator, theta is equal to inverse cosine of negative 1, and you should get a theta of pi or 180 degrees, depending on what your calculator is in, okay? Because those are essentially, that angle between them is 180, those are actually parallel, so that would be parallel in there. Do not round until the final answer, 180 degrees. If it has degrees there, make sure you put it in degrees. And this was negative 2. All right, find the dot product. We're on number 4. Find the dot product, V dot W. Find the angle between and state whether the vectors are parallel, orthogonal, or neither. So we have square root of 3 and then plus negative 1j, this is I, and so that's v. W is negative 1I plus 1j. Now I stack them, I'm not adding them. Just be very clear, I'm not adding them. I'm going to multiply. Negative 1 times the square root of 3 is going to give me negative square root of 3. Wait, that's not negative 1 on W. That's positive 1. And that's positive 1. Sorry, I think I must have been on the last problem. Okay, so square root of 3 times 1 is going to be the square root of 3. And then I'm going to add to that negative 1 times 1. That's going to be negative 1. And so if you do this on the calculator, I'm going to grab my calculator real quick. Square root of 3 is roughly 1.73, and then if you subtract 1, that'll leave you with about 0.73. Okay. And then the angle between V and W is, we need to find out what V is. So V is the square root of square root of 3 squared plus negative 1 squared. So root 3 squared is going to be 3 plus 1. So that's the square root of 4, which is 2. And then W is square root of 1 plus 1, because I'm going to square both ones, right? That gives me square root of 2. So now I have V cosine of the angle is equal to 0.73 over 2 root 2, because I'm going to take 2 and multiply it by root 2. So to find the theta, that's going to be the inverse cosine of 0.73 over 2 root 2. So let's go ahead and get that done. Give me a second here. I'm pulling it up on my calculator. All right, so the inverse cosine of 0.73 divided by 2 root 2. I get a theta of 75.04 degrees. So about 75 degrees. Okay? All right, so if it's 75 degrees, if we had an orthogonal, these two things would dot to give me 0, so it's not bad. If they were parallel, they would be either going the same angle or opposite angles, so it's not that. So we have a neither situation. Again, that's not going to be assessed, but for those of you who want to get through it on through Pearson. And let's take a look at the next one, 5. For the following vectors, find the dot product, find the angle between, and state whether the vectors are parallel, orthogonal, or neither. Dang, there's a lot of these. Okay, so we have negative 3 times 6 plus negative 4 times 8. So that's V dot W. So negative 18 plus negative 32 is going to give me a negative 50. And then V is going to equal the square root of negative 3 squared plus negative 4 squared. Remember, those negatives go away. So 9, square root of 9 plus 16 is the square root of 25. So that equals 5. And then my value for W is the square root of 6 squared plus 8 squared, which is 36 plus 64, which is the square root of 100, so that gives me 10. So finding the cosine of the angle, that's going to be V dot W over V W, those magnitudes. So I'm going to get negative 50 over 5 times 10, which is 50. So negative 50 over 50 gives me negative 1. Okay, there's only one angle that gives me -1. That angle would be 180 degrees or pi radians. You can also do theta equals the inverse cosine of -1. So if you can't, off the top of your head come up with your angle, then you can do that. So this would actually be parallel, and then my angle would be 180 degrees. 180 degrees. This was -50. The vectors are parallel. Okay. A minivan, number 6, with a gross weight of 5,100 pounds is parked in a street with a slope of 8 degrees. Find the magnitude of the force required to keep the vehicle from rolling down a hill. What is the magnitude of the force perpendicular to the hill? I'm not going to ask you something like this because it assumes that you know a little bit about some of the stuff going on. When we're looking at an 8-degree hill, let's call that car or the minivan, let's just assume it's a box, right? It wants to know what force is going to keep it from rolling downhill. Well, we all know that it's going to want to go this direction. So in order to keep it from rolling downhill, we have to do a force this direction that is equal and opposite to this one, right? So this is the force, and it's actually friction. So I'm going to go ahead and label it friction, force of friction. So that's the first one. What is the magnitude of the force required to keep the vehicle from rolling down the hill? So if I'm doing that, keep in mind here, we've got the weight goes towards the earth. And what we've done here is we can create right, here's an axis right there. We can create a similar triangle with 8 degrees. And we're looking for my x value goes down, right? So there is a x component that goes down. I want the other force to be this way. So all I have to do is solve for this, and I will have what this value should be. It's just going the opposite direction. So that is my opposite sign. And I know the total weight, okay, the weight of the van is going to be straight down. So that's my hypotenuse, right? So if I'm finding my opposite, right, opposite equals hypotenuse times the sine of the angle. Well, I know my hypotenuse is 5,100 pounds and the sine of 8 degrees, because that is the angle that's opposite. So that will give us our value. And so hang on a second. Let me go ahead and do that on my calculator. Okay, so 5,100 times the cosine of 8 degrees. Sorry, times the sine. Times the sine of 8 degrees. So that's going to be 709.78 pounds is needed to keep it from slipping. To keep from slipping. Okay, and then my other piece that I've got to figure out is this. It wants to know the force perpendicular to the ramp, right? So that's going to be my adjacent side to that 8 degree. So now we have the adjacent is equal to my hypotenuse times the cosine of 8 degrees. So that's going to equal, so this is my perpendicular one, is going to be 5,100 times the cosine of 8 degrees. So that, let me get that out, times the cosine of 8 degrees is going to be equal to 5050.36 pounds. You guys are probably, for those of you who have taken physics, you're used to forces in newtons. Pounds is your force in English, and so that means that the mass in English is actually called slugs. I know it's not very attractive, so that's why we just talk about forces with pounds. All right, so that's number 6. Let's go ahead and put these in. Magnitude of force perpendicular to the hill. So 709, 708, and 5050.36. Round to 1 decimal place. Well, it would be helpful if I read the directions, right? Let's go ahead and round to 1 decimal. That would be 0.78, that'd be 8. And 0.36 would be 4. All right. Find V cross W, W cross V, V cross V, and W cross W. We know by algebra that V cross V and W cross W is going to give us the opposite, or is going to end up giving us 0, right? Because we're taking something, multiplying the cross, and then subtracting the same cross. V times W, we do have to legit figure that out. And then once we have that, our W cross V is going to be the opposite of that. So I can just change my signs. Actually, let me just put it underneath here so I have room. Right, so I'm just going to change my signs. So now I only have one thing to do. So I'm going to build my I, J, K. And I have on my I 1, -3, and 1, 2, -2, -2. If you aren't sure how to do this, go back to the 9.7 cross product video. That will help you walk through it. So now I've got my matrix set up, and I set up my i's minus my j plus my k. And then my -3 times -2 is going to be 6 minus a -2. J is going to be -2 minus 2. And then K is going to be minus 2 minus -6. Okay. So 6 minus a -2 is like 6 plus 2, so that's 8i. Minus 2 and minus 2 is minus 4. So minus a minus 4, that's going to be plus 4j. And then 2 minus a -6 is going to be 4, so plus 4k. So this is what I'm going to get for my first cross product. 8i, 8, 4, and 4. 8i, 4j, 4k. And then it says type your answer in the form W cross V. Now, if we are doing these backwards, that means that these two lines are going to end up switching value. And so you're going to end up having like -6 minus 2. And so that'll give you a -8i. So remember, your opposite cross is going to be the opposite signs. So I don't even have to work it out. I can just change my signs on all of it from here to here, and it'll give it to me, right? Because it's the same as the opposite of V cross W. Okay, and 0, 0. Find V cross W, W cross V, W cross W, and V. So we know these two are 0. We don't have to do those. And then this is going to be the opposite of V cross W. So we just have to do V cross W. So I, J, K, 3, -2, 3, 3, -2, 3, 4, 3, 1, 4, 3, 1. And then get all the players here. I, minus j plus k. And so now I have -2 minus 9. And then for j, I have 3 minus 12. And then for k, I have 9 minus -8. So that gives me -11i. 3 minus 12 is -9. Negative gives me plus 9j. And then 9 minus a -8 is going to give me a positive 17k. So that will be my first one. 11i, -11i plus 9j plus 17k. And guys, these are in this same thing. This review is in Pearson, so if you want to run it with different numbers, you can. And then to do the next one, all I'm going to do is change all my signs. So that -11 becomes plus, so that's 11i minus 9j minus 17k. All right, so that's number 8. We're getting close. All right, number 9. U cross V for the given vectors. Okay, so we have to determine if it's a vector or scalar. If it's a vector, our answer is going to be in, I hat plus whatever j plus whatever k. If it's a scalar, right? So vector is a cross product, a scalar is a dot product. We are going to get just one value because we multiply all the i's together and then come up with something. Multiply the j's together, multiply the k's together. So if we have u cross v, this is going to be just a standard cross product. So it's going to be a, it's going to be a vector. And so I have I, j, k. And I'm looking at 2, -3, 1, and -3, 4, and 4. So I'm looking at these here. So U cross V, get all my players here. Now I have -3 times 4 is -12. 1 times 4 is 4. And 2 times 4 is 8, minus -3 times 1 is -3. And then 2 times 4 is 8, minus 9. So I should have -16i minus a positive, that's minus 11j. And then 8 minus 9 is -1, so -k. And I typically don't write the 1 if the 1 is there. So this is going to be, A is going to be -16, B is going to be -11, and C is going to be -1. Okay, so that's there. That's all that it wanted for there. Okay, number 10, find 3u cross v for the given vectors. All right, let's go ahead and do 3u. That means 3 times 3, that's 9i. 3 times -1 is -3j. And then 3 times 2 is going to be 6k. So I'm going to do a dot product with this and this. Or, excuse me, cross product with that and that. So I, j, k, set up my matrix. 9, -3, and 6. -2, 3, and 4. And so I, j, so -12 minus 18, and then we have 9 times 4 is 36, minus a -12, and then we have 27 minus positive 6. So this is a cross product, so it's going to be a vector. So -12 and -18 gives me -30. Here I have 36 plus 12. That's going to be 48, so minus 48. And then 27 minus 6 gives me 21. Alrighty. Okay, here this one is u dot v cross w for the given vectors. Your last operation is what kind of determines what this is. So it's going to end up being a b. So the answer is going to be a scalar quantity. So first I got to do my cross product here, and then I'm going to dot product with the u. So let's get these in a cross product. So I, j, k, it's going to be negative 4, 4, 3, 3, 1, 1. And so I minus j plus k. So 4 times 1 is 4 minus 3. We have negative 4 minus 9. And then we have negative 4 minus 12. So that's going to be 1i. Negative 4, negative 9 is negative 13. Minus a negative is going to be plus 13j. Negative 4 and negative 12 give us negative 16. Okay, so that's our cross product. And then we're going to take 2i minus 3j and 1k. Now, what we're doing, I'm putting a squiggly line here because we're not adding them, right? We're multiplying. So 1 times 2 gives me 2. 13 times 3. 13 times 3. I don't know why I can't think of it off the top of my head. We shall get it though. 13 times 3 is 39. Jeez, what's wrong with me? Okay. There's a negative in there, so that's a negative 39. And then negative 16 times 1 gives me negative 16. So because this is scalar, I'm just notice that all the I, J's, and K's have dropped. So 2 minus 39 minus 16 is a negative 53. So it's going to be negative 53 is our final scalar quantity. 12 is going to be the same thing. Well, not quite the same thing. We have a u cross w or u cross v before we have a dot product with w. That dot product is the last thing we're going to do, so that's going to be a b. So let's go ahead and cross u and v. So I, j, k. U is going to be 3, negative 2, and 1. V is going to be negative 8, 4, and 8. So I end up with negative 2 and 8 is negative 16 minus 4. And then j is going to be 3 times 8 is 24 minus negative 8. And then 3 times 4 is 12 minus 8 times 2 is 16. But it's positive because there's 2 negatives. So I end up with negative 20i. It's plus, so that becomes 30 plus 32j. 12 minus 16 would be minus 4k. All right, so that's my cross product. Now I'm going to take that w and do a dot product. So just I is 1i plus 1j plus 7k. Make a squiggly. So negative 20 times 1 is negative 20. 32 times 1 is going to be plus 32. And 4 times 7 is negative 28 because we have a negative sign on that. So let me go ahead and add these up. And we should have negative 20 plus 32 minus 28. That's going to be negative 16. So my value is negative 16 right here. That is my scalar quantity. So don't get confused when it's time to figure out if it's vector or scalar, right? A vector has to have your cross product as its final computation, and you want to make sure that you put your answer in IJK format, and then your dot product is going to be just a single number where you're multiplying your i's your J's and your K's, and then adding those up according to its sign. Okay? Good luck on the quiz tomorrow, you guys, or assessment tomorrow. You guys will be fantastic.